When I think back to that weekend, there is one detail I still can't explain. While I was asleep inside a closet, my cousins were looking at the window of the room where I was hiding, and they saw another boy standing there, smiling and waving at them. I was only a kid at the time. My parents would occasionally take me to my aunt and uncle's place for the weekend, where I would spend most of my time with my two cousins, who were around my age. They lived on a small farm surrounded by open land, the kind of place where three adventurous boys could disappear for hours without anyone immediately noticing. We had plenty of room to run, climb, explore, and get into whatever trouble we thought we could get away with. About half a mile away was another farm. Nobody lived there anymore. It had been abandoned for decades, leaving behind several old buildings scattered across the property. The structures were deteriorating, but to us, they looked like an enormous playground. There were broken barns, old rooms, forgotten belongings, and enough dark corners to make every visit feel like an adventure. My cousins also knew the stories. According to them, something terrible had happened in the old house. A man had supposedly gone insane, murdered his entire family with an axe, then hanged himself. And, naturally, the story didn't end there. They claimed that his angry spirit returned every night, wandering through the abandoned property and searching for new victims. Even then, I knew they were probably exaggerating. Maybe the story had started with an old rumor. Maybe they'd invented half of it themselves. But the abandoned farm made the story feel believable. That afternoon, the three of us decided to play hide and seek. When it was my turn to hide, I ran toward a flimsy brown barn. There were living quarters upstairs, and I climbed the stairs, searching through the rooms for somewhere nobody would think to look. Inside, time seemed to have stopped. Furniture was still sitting where someone had left it. Personal belongings were scattered across the floor. I stepped over broken dishes, tattered clothes, and crumbling books until I found a small room with a closet. It was perfect. Inside were several long black dresses still hanging from the rod. I squeezed behind them, pulled the folding door almost completely shut, and crouched down with my knees tucked against my chest. A thin strip of sunlight came through a crack near a nearby window. Then I waited. At first, I could hear nothing unusual, just silence, and I had no idea how long that silence would last. For a while, hiding there was almost fun. The little room was cramped, but I had found what seemed like the perfect hiding place. My only light came from that narrow slit of sunlight, and beyond it, the rest of the room was dim and still. I waited for my cousins to find me. Then I waited some more. Eventually, the excitement began to disappear. Minutes passed, then more minutes. I started wondering whether they had given up. After nearly an hour, boredom began to settle in. My head drooped, and without realizing it, I fell asleep. I woke with a jerk. Everything had changed. The room was completely black. For a few seconds, I didn't know where I was. I couldn't see the dresses hanging around me, couldn't see the closet door, couldn't even immediately remember why I was sitting there. Then the memories came back. The abandoned farm, the game, my hiding place, and the realization that it was now nighttime. A cold sense of dread settled in my stomach. I had been left there. I tried to stand, but a painful cramp seized my calf and forced me back down. I shifted around, waiting for it to loosen. That's when I heard it. A door slammed downstairs. I froze. For a moment, I thought it had to be one of my cousins. Then came silence, and then footsteps. They were at the bottom of the stairs. But something was wrong. These weren't the quick, careless footsteps of a child. They were slow, heavy, deliberate. And after every other step came a dull thud. I stopped breathing. Maybe someone had come looking for me. Maybe it was an adult. I couldn't tell. The footsteps began climbing. Step, thud, step, thud, closer. I pressed myself deeper into the darkness, praying whoever was downstairs would turn around. They didn't. The footsteps reached the upper floor. Then they stopped. For several seconds, there was nothing. I waited. The silence seemed to stretch forever. Then the walking began again. This time, there was another sound. A steady scrape against the floor. Something was being dragged. Slowly, heavily. The footsteps moved through the debris, passing from one room to another. I could hear the strange scraping following behind them. I stayed completely still. Then something else reached me. A faint smell. It was difficult to identify at first, but there was something rotten in it. Something putrid. The smell grew stronger. The scraping continued, and the footsteps were getting closer. Whatever was moving through that building was now approaching the room where I was hiding. I knew I couldn't stay there forever, but I also knew I couldn't make myself move. Then the footsteps stopped outside the bedroom, and the scraping stopped with them. The silence that followed was worse than the footsteps. I couldn't see anything through the darkness. I could barely hear myself breathing. The only thing I could do was sit there behind the folding closet door and wait. The footsteps started again. They moved closer, slowly. Then they stopped directly in front of the closet. My entire body locked up. Whatever had been walking through the building was now standing on the other side of the door. I waited for the closet to open. It didn't. Seconds passed. Maybe more. I couldn't tell. Then, just as suddenly, the footsteps moved away. They crossed toward the opposite side of the room and disappeared through the doorway. I listened as they faded down the hallway. And then there was nothing. No footsteps. No scraping. No movement. I remained inside the closet, barely daring to breathe. Eventually, I started trying to convince myself that it was over. Maybe someone had entered the building. Maybe the sounds had been caused by something completely ordinary. Maybe I had frightened myself because of all the stories my cousins had told me. I needed to get out. I needed to run home. But my body wouldn't move. I waited and waited. Finally, I started gathering enough courage to open the closet door. Then 3 things happened almost simultaneously. The first was the smell. It hit me so suddenly that I could barely process it. It smelled like fresh roadkill. Strong. Rotten. Close. The second thing was the sound. Breathing. Not mine. There was someone breathing behind me in the darkness of the closet. And then I felt it. Hot breath against the back of my neck. That was enough. I didn't think. I didn't look. I simply threw myself out of the closet. I stumbled into the darkness of the room and ran. I had no light to guide me. The only illumination came from the faint moonlight filtering through the old windows, and I had to rely on memory to find my way through the building. Behind me, I heard footsteps. They were coming after me. Fast. I ran harder. The escape was clumsy and desperate. I crashed into things I couldn't see. I tripped over debris, stumbled across broken floors, and nearly fell more than once. But I kept moving. The footsteps followed. They seemed to be closing the distance. I refused to look back. I didn't want to know what was behind me. All I wanted was the front door. Then I found it. I burst through the doorway and ran straight into the country night. Only after I was outside did I finally turn around. The building stood behind me. Dark. Silent. Empty. There was nobody standing in the doorway. Nobody in the yard. Nothing chasing me. The footsteps had stopped. But I didn't stop. I ran all the way back to my aunt and uncle's house. And when I finally reached the driveway, I saw something that made the whole situation even more confusing. There was a police car waiting there. My parents were there too. They had been worried sick. The moment I arrived, everyone started demanding answers. Where had I been? Why hadn't I come home? Why had I disappeared? I tried to explain. I told them I had been hiding at the abandoned farm. But apparently, by the time evening came and I still hadn't been found, my cousins had gone back home and told their parents. Eventually, the police had been called, and according to them, they had already searched the abandoned property. Every building, every room they could access. They had looked everywhere. There was no sign of me. That meant the situation made even less sense. Because I had been there. I had spent hours inside that building. I had fallen asleep in the closet. I had heard someone, or something, moving through the rooms. I had felt hot breath against my neck. And I had run from the building while hearing footsteps behind me. Yet the police hadn't found anyone. The implication wasn't difficult to understand. If they had searched everywhere and found no one, then maybe they thought I hadn't actually been there. Maybe they thought I was lying. Maybe they believed I had wandered somewhere else and invented the entire story. At the time, I couldn't explain what had happened. I was a child. I didn't have an answer for the footsteps. I didn't know what had made the scraping sound. I couldn't explain the smell. And I certainly couldn't explain the breathing I had heard inside the closet. So eventually, the story became something I carried with me. Years passed. The memory never completely disappeared. Then one day, one of my cousins finally told me something he hadn't told the adults that night. He explained that he and his brothers really had spent hours looking for me. They weren't lying about that. They had searched the property because they genuinely wanted to find me. But during the search, they thought they saw me. Not outside. Not in the barn. They thought they saw me in the window of the bedroom where I had been hiding. From a distance, they believed it was me. So they moved closer. And that's when they realized something was wrong. The person in the window wasn't me. It was a young boy. Neither of them recognized him. He was standing there, looking down at them. And he was smiling. Then he waved. Not a frightened wave. Not a warning. He gestured for them to come upstairs. My cousins didn't investigate. They ran. They went straight back home. And they never told anyone that part of the story. At least, not until years later. There was only one problem with what they had seen. At the exact time they thought they saw that boy standing in the upstairs window, I wasn't standing there. I was asleep. Inside the closet. That's the part of the story that still bothers me the most. My cousins had seen someone in the window. They had seen a young boy smiling and waving at them. They had watched him gesture for them to come upstairs. And whatever they thought they were seeing was close enough to convince them that it was me at first. But I wasn't there. I was inside that building, asleep in the closet. By the time they were looking toward the window, I had already been hidden away for hours. I hadn't been standing near the glass. I hadn't been waving. I hadn't been calling them upstairs. I hadn't even known they were outside. I was curled up in the darkness, unaware that they were searching for me. Then, sometime later, I woke up to the sound of that door slamming downstairs. I heard the heavy footsteps. I heard the strange thud that followed every other step. I heard something scraping across the floor. I smelled something rotten. I heard breathing behind me, and then I felt hot breath against my neck. Whatever explanation exists for that night, I have never found it. The police searched the property and found nothing. My cousins didn't recognize the boy in the window, and when I finally escaped the building, there was no one outside. No footsteps, no figure, nothing. Just the abandoned farm sitting silently in the darkness. Even the stories my cousins had told me as a child don't provide a satisfying explanation. They were rumors, embellished stories about a man who supposedly murdered his family and later returned as an angry spirit. I never knew how much of that story was true, but I also never forgot what happened inside that barn. For years, I wondered whether I had simply been frightened by the environment, exhausted from waiting, and confused after falling asleep. Maybe the footsteps had been something ordinary. Maybe the smell had come from an animal somewhere inside the building. Maybe fear had transformed harmless sounds into something much worse. But there was still one detail that didn't fit. My cousins. They weren't inside the closet with me. They weren't asleep. They were outside searching for me. And they saw someone in the window. Someone who looked enough like me to make them approach. Someone who smiled at them. Someone who waved. Someone who wanted them to come upstairs. Then they ran away. Meanwhile, I was still hidden inside the closet. That is how the story ended. I escaped the abandoned farm, made it back to my family, and never willingly went exploring there again. But the question remains, who, or what, was standing in that upstairs window? Because whatever my cousins saw that night, it wasn't me. And according to them, it knew exactly where they were, and it wanted them to come inside.